This is MFG Out Loud. Courageous conversations about sales and marketing for today's manufacturers. With your hosts, Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore.
Happy anniversary.
Yay!
1 year.
Can you believe it?
No.
Right?
Yeah. For everybody listening, we just want to say thank you for your support, your participation, your sharing, liking, clicking 5 stars. We really started this a year ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And
as one should.
Yeah. And didn't really know how to do a podcast, but we knew that there were so many great stories to share and that there wasn't a podcast specifically having courageous conversations about sales and marketing for manufacturers.
Right.
So we created it. And I was thinking, we want to go through and we want to share golden nuggets from every episode so that you listening will walk away with a minimum of one game-changing idea or resource that will completely transform your business.
Yep. Just one?
I'm saying a minimum.
It's going to be a bucket load of them. So
get your pen and paper ready, kids.
Your wheelbarrow. We're gonna drop some knowledge on you here. Some nuggets from heaven.
Well, and I know we were going to just talk real quick here at the beginning about what have we learned from this experience? Because I can tell you all things, me, all roads lead back to marketing. And I thought, much like I preach all the time about brands not making it about you, right? No one cares about you. They care about themselves. So what's in it for them? And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned in hosting a podcast was it's really all about your guest and your audience and really bringing out the best in them. Where I think before we started the podcast, I sort of felt like, it was the Ray and Allison show. What am I going to say? How am I going to sound? What am I going to look like on Zoom? Honestly, it was a lot of that. And I think that was very naive. And I think what I've realized is, making it all about the people that you are talking to and making this for.
Yeah.
And opening yourself up to I never realized, honestly, how flippin' cool manufacturing really is. Right? Until we started interviewing all these people and hearing their stories.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What about you?
No, I agree. In going through the 40 episodes that we've had and kind of revisiting the journey, I shared earlier, I started at number 40 and worked my way backwards. And it was funny because the deeper I got into it, particularly at that point of inflection where we went from just you and I, and then started to have guests. And it really is, to me, it's an example of practicing what we preached and engaging, with the market or with our audience and having that dialogue. Because prior to having the guests, it was, well, we think this is what everybody wants to hear. So then we would, in a very structured way, back and forth, and here are the 3 things you got to know, and it's very informative. And but again, part of the learning curve. I think it was a little 2-dimensional, and it really just took on so much more character and flavor, and nuance, and I mean that in the most awesome way when we brought on guests, and we're able to have those now wait a minute moments, or do that again. What does that really mean? How do we apply that? And those types of things. So what a learning experience. it really has been a phenomenal exercise, just to go through in preparation for today's show, review some of the awesome guests that we've had, little vignettes of the time that we've been through, 2020, the year that was, 3,000 days long,
For sure.
It's like, oh my God, but what a journey. And I couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. So thank you for this first step. So.
Well, yeah. And I think it, again, relating it to manufacturers and all of our amazing listeners, it's doing shit that scares you, right? That was my theme for 2020. Do shit that scares you. And this was scary. At first it was for me. I think you never met a mic you didn't like, because I think you're really good at it. You just have this ease. And it was a little torturous for me in the beginning. Now I really enjoy it. But again, I think it's getting out of your own way. And I think if anyone listening could take away one thing from this podcast, and it's, don't be afraid to do the bit that scares you, because you'll do nothing but grow, no matter what it is.
Yep. And they should take those words seriously from the now sought after guest and speaker for webinars across the internet. Not me, that's you. So.
No, but and then we did the Game Changer series.
Yeah.
With Ben, Mark, and Chris, and just all the things that have come from this experience. I want to encourage manufacturers to try these new things. Any number, even if it's one of the things that we're going to talk about in this and possibly the deluxe episode. I think this is going to be longer than one.
The box set.
Yeah, but just to know, and I say this wholeheartedly, try one of the things that we're going to recap, and you'll never be the same.
Yeah, true.
There's so much. So let's dive in. The first 13 episodes or so were just you and I.
Right.
And so I think, like you said, let's recap, starting when we brought on our first guest, which I believe was Ben Baker.
Was it really?
Episode 14.
You're right. Mr. Ben Baker.
Your Living Brand Live. Oh, wow. Love it. But yeah, he taught us a lot. Ben, if you do not follow him on LinkedIn, you should run out and do that. Mm-hmm. He taught us a lot about culture, and a healthy culture inside your organization will completely transform your sales and marketing results.
Right. The one quote that he had that really jumped out at me, that I still remember. He said, "Your brand is only as valuable as your unhappiest employee on their worst day." And I'm like, oh my goodness.
That was genius.
Yeah, that was, I've still remembered that one. Ben has such a great perspective. I mean, it goes from the culture to the marketing, to the onboarding of employees. It's such a holistic view of an organization. He's got such a fascinating background too. So there's so much that can be unpacked either from our episode or following Ben. He's prolific. He writes books. He's regularly on podcasts. He's all over LinkedIn. And looking back, it's like, holy smokes, how the hell did we grab him?
Yeah, well, and the power of LinkedIn. I think that's,
right?
I've been preaching that since way before it was cool. Mm-hmm. And I think this last year was it was like the end of the rainbow, or the beginning, if you will. The number of people that you and I met, connected with, collaborated with, it's just been profound. So if anybody listening is not active on LinkedIn, man, you got to run out and do that.
Yeah. Even if it's just, following and commenting. Again, be careful. Just like everywhere else, it's easy to get sucked into the vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Boy, I got 1 trillion likes.
Yeah.
the real value of LinkedIn is connecting with people who are doing and saying things that resonate with you. And it's okay to, hey, once you've connected with them or you see they say something, comment back, engage with them. It's okay. That's what it's there for. And that's really how a lot of networking has happened in the last year, and I think people that got good at it are going to continue, certainly. I know I am. And it's like, wow, what a game changer.
Well, and think about too, you bring up a great point. Think about the amount of content that you yourself, Raymond Zaganto, put out before we started this podcast.
It's true.
And how active or inactive were you on LinkedIn versus today?
Yep.
It's been an incredible shift.
Part of it, yeah, you're right. It's, I guess, like a lot of things, it takes time to learn, and I'm by no means have I mastered it, but I'm learning and applying at an accelerating rate.
Yeah,
is really the thing, and you have to have reached that kind of aha moment where it makes sense for you. It's like I don't write about things or post about things I don't know anything about.
Right.
I write and post about things I'm curious about and I want to learn about, and I'm looking for feedback. And it's okay to ask questions. Does anybody get this? I don't. Somebody will chime in.
Well, that's
you got to find your way.
I think too, a lot of the brands that you and I work with, they have been reticent to dive into social media. They waited a really long time, and many of them are just scratching the surface, and they're unsure, what do we talk about?
Right.
Well, how often do we post? Well, should we be on every platform? What if we run out of things to say? Right. Well, we don't have time. We don't have a dedicated person. And so I think, our experiences with social media have been much like theirs. We didn't know. I used to feel very awkward. This is years ago, but very awkward tweeting or, creating a post. I noticed that some people just seemed so good at it. They just had this way about them. And like you just said, you know what? It takes practice. Yeah. So you just have to practice. And even if it's you yourself or someone is doing it for your company, it's social, right? So it's a long, ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
And you're not going to master it right out the gate. And that's okay.
Yep. And it was interesting. I caught a post today because I find myself following people that are giving some really good advice on Daniel Murray's one, the Marketing Millennial. There's a bunch of folks out there that I just love their stuff. And one that was going around today, it's like, somebody please tell senior management it's okay to do a tweet without a call to action. which kind of goes to the social, side of things. But, something you brought up since the day I've met you and we discussed on episode 6 about social media. You had said, if you're not where your customers are and leading the conversation online, somebody else is. So that was when you had said that to me for the first time. At that instant, social media made sense for B2B.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Ooh. I was like, okay, now I get it. It's not just where the young people hang out. It's like everybody's out there. What are you waiting for?
It's happening with or without you.
Yep.
So, and my old creative partner said, if you're not jumping in, it's like walking down the sidewalk, walking past piles of money. You don't have to pick it up, but somebody will.
Yeah.
So she always related
piles of money. Who doesn't
like
piles of money?
Yeah. And that's where manufacturers say, well, but hang on, I still don't understand how you quantify, the social media metrics with conversion. So that's like that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother episode. But that's part of it, is trying to help senior management understand that it's an ongoing conversation and not, every tweet or post is going to lead to conversion. What it does do is it's exposure. You're showing up and you're showing up and you're showing up and you're leading a conversation, hopefully, about something that your audience cares about. That contributes sometimes exponentially and unquantifiably to your growth.
Yeah, I get it. And we're gonna pound on that some more, I'm sure, as we go through our list of superstars, our superheroes.
Well, I think next we should recap our buddy, the wizard, Mark Mitchell.
The one and only.
He is, again, if you are listening to this and you do not follow seethewizard.com, follow him on LinkedIn. Mark Mitchell is a sales badass, especially for building materials companies. Yep. And I made myself a little note here. One of the most impactful things he ever shared is this story. A salesperson reached out to him and said, Mark, I have 15 minutes to meet with a group of lumber dealers in Michigan. And I paid $350 to be a sponsor. So I get 15 minutes at a table. It's like speed dating. He said, what should I do? What should I talk about? And Mark said, the last thing you should talk about is your company or your products. And the guy just looked at him like, what? Like he had, 3 eyes.
Yeah, right.
And so of course he instructed him, how do you compete with big boxes? How do you compete with builders that are more and more demanding with, negotiating rebates? And he gave him like 6 topics and said, ask them questions. Yeah. Don't talk about yourself. And I got to tell you, he said the guy came back after this event and he's like, holy shit, I got like 3 new customers. It opened up all these conversations. You were right.
I love that. That was the exact same one I wrote down.
Really?
Oh yeah. That story just so resonated with me. And it was funny because I remember when we had Mark on, that was one of those, he's a content machine.
Yeah.
He's got so much stuff out there, either podcasts or blogs. So you gotta check him out. If you want to get a feel for him, you can sneak up on him by reading what he's done before you reach. That's fine. But I found that when it was kind of in the archives. I remember when we brought it up to him, he was like, hadn't heard that one in a while. He goes, oh yeah. it was nothing to him, but I was like, wow, make it about them. And and how often have we heard that theme repeated,
Yeah, it's true. And I'm glad you brought up his content because anybody listening should definitely follow Mark, sign up for his e-newsletter. It comes out every Sunday night. And it's funny, I remember when he rebranded years ago, and he kind of came up on my radar, and I thought, who is this guy? Because a lot of our clients are building material brands. And I thought, is he legit? So I had my eye on him, and I started watching him produce content. And again, an excellent example of how to curate content, how to create content with a system. So anybody listening, follow his system. And I don't want to dive into this too much, but like put out the newsletter on Sunday, right? Get help writing it if you're too busy, or if you're responsible for something like that for your company, or hire somebody, put that out on Sunday. Then guess what? It's a blog post that rolls out to everybody the following week. And it's also how many social posts can you do from the content in that? I'm going to say you could do 20 different posts from that one bit of content. Third, you could do a video and have video vignettes from, see where I'm going with this? Yeah. So one, and I have have a paper on my website, a PDF that I created, and it's creating 15 conversations from one piece of content. Now that's low. And I learned that from Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
He talks about creating 60 pieces of content from one conversation.
Yeah.
So, or,
Wow.
you know, one, yeah. So it's just endless, but Mark is really, really good at that. And I think he's the epitome of practicing what he preaches.
I
So
would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. And talk about a cat that can adapt. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
you know, to what's going on and what's leading edge. Because by his own admission, he'll say building products and distribution, he says they're like 10 years behind everybody. You know, and so he knows what state of the art is. He knows what state of the industry is, and he's really good at bridging that divide and making it workable for the leaders in that space. So awesome guy.
yeah.
Awesome.
And the other quick thing about him that I think listeners will really benefit from is he has this philosophy of instead of B to B, it's B through B.
Mm.
And he does a wizard summit twice a year. And it's just incredible. And what he teaches you is that idea of not just business to business, like poking, interrupting, hey, over here, it's through. So really looking through a business that you're trying to help and looking at their customer and then reverse engineering it back.
Well, that's a recurring theme.
Yeah.
And I know we've got a bunch of folks that reinforce that approach. So that's
For sure.
He's got it dialed in. That's for sure.
Well, and another guest that everybody can learn a lot from is episode 16 with Mr. Chris Lukey.
Oh man,
he is he taught us so much about podcasting, right?
he still does.
Yeah. I mean, manufacturing happy hour is, I feel like we're the little brother, you know. He does an amazing job of leading by example and really brings out the best in his guests.
Yep, he sure does. And his background, it's interesting in the time since we first talked to him, we first met Chris and the intervening months. I know he's off on his own right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's left the comfortable regular paycheck of Rockwell International and is now out on his own doing what he loves and what he's really good at full time. You know, in the podcasting space and helping on the marketing side of things, but just such great insights, such a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
His grasp of technology and marketing and how to navigate that space. He gets the attention of a lot of veterans of this space because he's so good at it and so innovative, you know, and such a neat cat. So what was your favorite quote? Do you have one from him you really like?
I do. Stay innovative, stay thirsty.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It
goes to his love of craft beers.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've been following his love of roller coasters.
No.
Oh yeah, roller coasters. Let's see, all things St. Louis. I know I think that's a hometown for him. But before I digress too far, one that I had grabbed from our conversation, he says manufacturers are recognizing the importance of looking outside of the industry for inspiration, best practices, and collaboration.
Yes.
Which I thought that was kind of his Rockwell perspective, you know, where he was selling leading edge technology, obviously to companies that were early adopters. So what are their characteristics? And he landed on that, which I thought was pretty instructive, you know, for our audience.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see, episode 17.
Yeah.
The naked selling guy, Mark Allen Roberts. He must hate me, really.
I don't think he's funny. Number one, he came up with it.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's certainly been riding that wave for a while. So,
but you know, until we met him, I never thought about the idea of how do you know if you're selling naked? And to just remind people who are listening, if you didn't catch that episode and wonder what in the hell we're talking about, he said, when the pandemic hit, and whose quote was that from?
I think it was
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. What was when the tide goes out, you can see who was swimming naked.
Yeah.
And, the pandemic hit, the tide went out, and it was like, and just how he taught us how to tell if you are selling naked and what to do about it. Is there a quote from him that stood out for you?
He's got so many. The hard thing reviewing that episode was really editing, to find what works. What I did land on, he said, if you can't communicate your value in 10 minutes, you're wasting the customer's time. Set your intention on serving over selling.
Yeah.
Which I thought was good, because a couple of things he's always said is beware of commission breath.
I love that.
It's like everybody can pick up on it. And that sales at the end of the day is an act of service. Don't lose sight of that. And I thought that just kind of captured, who he is, but he's no shortage of statistics and knowledge on where things are. And I know we were fortunate enough to have him join us at a later episode. And I think I grabbed one of his statistics down with that episode, but truly a gentleman, very knowledgeable. And every time you talk to him, you'll learn something. So.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, for you listening, if you need any kind of help with coaching or training your salespeople, Mark Roberts, OTB Sales Solutions, he's your guy. I mean, absolutely. One of the statistics he shared with us is that when the pandemic hit, I think he had done some research and figured out that 60% of salespeople were not equipped or good at selling online.
Yeah.
60%. Blew my mind. So
at a time when that's your only option, here's another statistic to go along with that. I think he had mentioned, and this goes back a couple of months, from the start of the pandemic till now, I think he has trained something like 40,000 salespeople in online selling techniques in that intervening time. Now that the crisis hit, and where do we go? Where did everybody go to learn online selling? Mark.
Yep. And I think he's Mr. Statistics. So of course we have to do him justice here. I think he said like 90% of salespeople have never had formal training and not from the company they're currently selling for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a huge need. I think there's this misconception that if you can sell, which some people are just very gifted, right? You can be taught whatever the product is. You're just this natural salesperson. But think how many companies keep toxic or poor salespeople on their team just because it's a body and it fills a position.
Yeah.
And how that's really affecting you big picture.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think there's a follow-up episode in the works here.
I think for sure. And then episode 18 with our buddy Damon Pistolka.
Oh, man. Wow.
Exit Your Way. Okay, I'd never met anybody before him. You probably have. That helps people evaluate and sell their business. I hadn't personally known anybody that did that. And the fact that he helps people double the value and really exit their business in their way.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the name of the company, Exit Your Way, but God, he's just such a down to earth, salt of the earth human.
Yep. And that was the power of LinkedIn. It was one of those, I'd connected with an insurance guy. I know I should know his name. Long story short, up in Pacific Northwest, who had an interest in a niche in manufacturing. He reached out, talked to me, referred me to Damon. Damon and I had a conversation because he was like, well, if you're a friend of him, you must be worth talking to. And
that's how
Damon,
you met him.
Yeah. And Damon's I mean, he's a manufacturing guy
Mm-hmm.
that spent a lot of years working for private equity companies. Damon was the hired gun they would bring in to take a company that was purchased, get it firing on all cylinders, and then they'd sell it off and stuff like that. And there's good and bad that goes along with that. And to Damon's credit, there are, for lack of a better term, very ruthless ways of doing that. Damon kind of came out and in his business now, he works with the owners basically up front and says, hey, before you jump into the ring with the people that are likely to be buyers of your company, let me help get you ready, so that you can sell your business for what you think it's worth. Because there's probably some areas that the buyers are going to want to beat you up on. So what an awesome guy. Yeah.
And one word that stood out to me in looking through our show notes is generous.
Yeah.
He is such a generous networker, prolific LinkedIn contributor, and talk about somebody who pivoted during the pandemic. He created the Exit Your Way roundtable on Thursdays. So anybody listening, you gotta check those out. Look up Damon Pistolka, and every Thursday morning, you get an opportunity to share who you are, what you do, and then to learn from a speaker, which he was so gracious and invited me to do that at one point. And just the number of people that I have met through him and his network, it's astounding. I mean, you too. We have made some amazing friends, colleagues, podcast guests.
There's making some great business opportunities have come out of it as well. So what a great guy. I actually call him for advice from time to time. I'll get tapped on something that's a little out of my area of expertise, on acquisitions or whatever. And I'll call him up, and he's always there to set up. Whenever you want to talk, if I were you, I would do this, this, and this. And it's like, that's good enough for me. So awesome guy, fantastic resource. And we're fortunate to be in his orbit, right? Yes.
I feel the same way. And, of all the people that I know on LinkedIn, he's one of the most upbeat and positive and just straightforward and funny. So if you're not already connected with him, I highly recommend it.
Yep, I agree.
We're forever different to have known Damon.
That's right.
And then what was episode 19?
Oh, please. Kirk Anderson.
Oh, Kirk
Anderson, the man, the myth, the legend.
The legend.
Oh, man. He dropped a bomb on all of us.
Always worried about his hair. Oh,
yeah, me too.
Man.
What an awesome dude. Talk about a ball of energy, always positive, always upbeat, generous networker.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, the stuff that he's doing to help out, small, medium-sized manufacturers. This is a guy that's got a passion for manufacturing, a resume in e-commerce. That would make anybody jealous, and an ability to just communicate it and make stuff happen in that space is just awesome. I've learned so much from him every time we talk.
Yeah.
It's another opportunity to learn.
He is just such a champion for manufacturers. Again, if you're listening and you are mystified by SEO, as I used to be, and he will demystify this for you, and really has, like Mark Roberts with his no smoke and mirrors approach. That would be Kurt with SEO, and really, just incredible. Really breaks it down. Yeah. I actually hired him, and we're collaborating with a client, and they are just thrilled with to be working with him, to how easy he's made it, and really makes it understandable. And there's a lot of SEO experts out there, and I would caution anybody to, if they come out of the gate and they want you to just spend a crap ton of money before you've really tested the waters and ramp up, I'd be a little cautious about that.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about Kurt.
Yep. Yeah, he's a bottom line guy. He's not about the vanity metrics. It's like, no, you need this, and here's why.
Yeah.
What I like, because for all the, the tremendous interest and the growth that's happening in the e-commerce space and everything else, he says, that's all part of the infrastructure you need to put in place, the digital infrastructure, which is, your website, your content, your SEO, and all of those things. And one of the quotes I pulled, he says, you want to be able to help your customers make a buying decision Friday night at midnight, without having to wait for you to open your doors on Monday.
Yes.
Like, well, that's there would be your reason for your digital footprint, and everything that you're doing. So yeah, he gets it. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention his company is b2btail.com.
Yep.
Already sold a business several years ago, and then he founded B2B Tail, and he just had so much to give that, you can't turn the guy off. He's like the Energizer Bunny.
No kidding. So yeah, check him out, find him, engage with him. He'll be your best friend before you know it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And who did we have next?
Ed Wallace.
Oh, Ed.
Yeah.
Author, consultant, business owner.
Philosopher.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Do you remember the name of his book? I did not write it down, but God, I should know.
Check the interwebs.
Yeah, for Ed Wallace. But I highly recommend purchasing his book and following him on LinkedIn. He is just a profound speaker.
Yeah.
He would bring so much to any manufacturing organization. If you want to have a sales, annual team meeting, or just a font of wisdom.
Yeah, it's such great stories about, the whole the human side and the humane side of things. He tells a great story about his favorite taxi driver.
Yes.
And that whole experience, business relationships that last. He's a prolific guy. I'm just checking.
He has a number of books, right?
Yeah, he does. Fares to Friends. I suspect that was his
taxi story.
His taxi guy. Creating Relational Capital, The Relationship Engine. He's the real deal. I think Mark Roberts introduced us to him.
That sounds right.
I know there's a couple other folks that follow him, and very gracious guest to have on the show. I know I was just looking at the quote that I had from him. He said 52% of sales are lost because client-facing professionals fail to identify and understand their prospects' requirements. They're just not listening. They're not connecting with them.
Yeah.
But, no, he was. That was one of those conversations that if we didn't stop it at 30 or 40 minutes, it was going to be 3 hours. So.
Well, and that's like my buddy Kevin Murphy says, stop showing up and throwing up. And I think, right? And I think that's what Ed pointed out, is that like slow down before you speed up, and do your homework and or listen. Yeah. Really understand that person to person human side of business.
Yep. Pay attention to them. Recurring theme. I guess you hear it once, you can go, yeah. But when a whole bunch of people from different areas start to, point in the same direction, it's like, might be pretty good chance it's true.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome guys.
And what was he, episode 20? 21?
Yes.
20.
It was 20, yeah.
So what about 21?
Remember who?
I don't.
Monty
Peterson.
Monty, our guy. Monty's doing some cool stuff since he came out. Number one, his emphasis on the importance of having process around execution management is so spot on, because there are so many companies. They'll meet, they'll do the strategic plan, and here's what we're going to do, and then it's let's get back to firefighting for the rest of the year. And he focuses on such an important area, and he's been showing up on. I've seen him on or heard him on some other podcasts. He's showing up doing some videos now on LinkedIn. So if you're not already following, Monty and his organization, awesome guy. Another, LinkedIn connection. We just started engaging with each other on content. Yep. I think I jumped in and disagreed with something he said, and then I spent a Friday evening going back and forth with him on something, and it was just awesome. He's just such a kind and sharing person, and he helps you learn about stuff. So we're fortunate to have him on board as well.
Well, and talk about a thought leader. How we talk about leading the conversation, and execution and processes around that. He is truly walking the talk.
Yeah.
And he's also incredibly generous. There are a lot of people on social media, and I know we talk about LinkedIn quite a bit, that are more voyeurs. They're watching what's happening. They're not really posting because, as we know, 90% of the content on LinkedIn comes from 5% of LinkedIn users.
Wow.
For real.
Wow.
And so again, there's that huge opportunity,
Yeah.
To not just watch what's going on or click like. I mean, that works. That's engaging.
Yeah.
But Monty takes the time to comment.
Yeah.
Regularly.
He does.
Is very thoughtful. And I think, again, he is a good example for us to follow of, it's what we're trying to tell manufacturers is you've got to engage and have that back and forth.
Plus, we learned about rocket sauce.
Yes, we did.
He was our guy. He says, you supply the rocket sauce. I help you shake it out of the bottle and bring out the flavor of your team.
I remember that. That's brilliant.
Mr. Rocket Sauce.
He should do like Bonnie Strominger, and maybe I should create a label for him. And he could
there you go. Rockets, yeah.
Right?
Bonnie's got, she's got the LinkedIn pills or what is
the video pills.
Video.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll have to do that and send it to him.
We'll send him a bottle.
Oh, and one of the things I love is episode 22. Yeah. If anybody listening has any idea what machine as a service is, or I should say, if you don't know, catch episode 22 with Michael Kromicki. I know we had trouble pronouncing his name.
I had trouble. I was practicing for today. So.
It looks like Kromicki, but talk about a genius.
Yeah.
My head hurt after that episode. He is so smart and so knowledgeable about machine as a service and how it transforms manufacturing.
Yeah. That was a tough one to find a quote, and we've had a couple of those. Justin Goldston, when we talked about blockchain or some of the other folks, but that was a little rough one. What I had from that episode was machinery as a service. It creates the opportunity to contract on the outcome as opposed to contracting on the delivery of a machine. That's about as much as I could cook it down. And he goes into a lot of detail, but in a way that's understandable.
Yes.
And thank goodness he's been getting out more and more. I know Chris Lukey's had him on, his podcast a couple of times. So I'm seeing his company Steam Chain pop up more and more places in terms of getting some well-earned visibility. I'm seeing some of their clients as well, some of the automation firms that they engage with. But what a cool leading edge concept, to have out there. So I think that's awesome. He was a great guy, and the first really formally dressed, because he came out with a sport coat, and I was like, really?
That's true.
Yeah.
And of course, I think this is the first thing I recorded in. It's my favorite T-shirt, so I had to sport it. not professionally dressed today. One of the
Go ahead.
no, one of the quotes that I loved from him was, collecting the data is only step one. The next step is to use the data to improve how people are incentivized and how they work together over the lifetime of the asset.
Yeah, good point.
It was, there's just so many. He uncomplicated the machine as a service for me, like to understand it.
Once he also mentioned that there's precedent for it in the marketplace. And it was like Rolls-Royce airplane engines were that way. And it went from whatever it was, once they went from basically the airlines, Rolls-Royce puts the engines on the airplane and they pay per hour. Once they went to that model and built in the service and all the other stuff that goes along with it, their revenue took off like crazy. Yeah. So, at first you look at, it's just a financing tool. It's really a business innovation tool. And there are examples out there in the real world that's like, no, this is big stuff. It's not a matter of, hey, I saved a few percentage points by financing it differently. Completely different way of looking at how expensive capital equipment can be put on the floor.
Yeah. Well, I would say anybody listening, check out steamchain.io. Especially if you are an OEM and you want to expand your revenue and profitability with machine as a service, Michael's your guy.
Yep, absolutely.
So episode 23 was with our buddy Darren Mitchell. And
we're so proud of Darren.
Yes. Tell everybody listening what happened to him after he was on our podcast.
I just want to say, that podcast launched, I think, in August, something like that. And it was a big hit. And Darren, God bless him, he did the best he could. He showed what he's made of. And just a few short months later, what does he do? He sells his companies for millions of dollars.
Yep.
Now, are we solely responsible for that? We don't. Pish posh. Way to go, Darren. But what an awesome guest. What an awesome guy. Somebody to follow,
Well, he is really, again, he's manufacturing out loud. He's of course now created Mitchell Industries and is doing all kinds of things working. And he's done this from an island, Prince Edward Island up in Canada.
Yeah.
He is, talk about doing shit that scares you. He is not an extrovert. He does not like seeing himself on video. So what did he do? He started making videos for his company. Yeah. And that is one of, I would say he would attribute this to, one of the main contributors to his growth, to his company value, and to being sought after and being purchased.
What I heard is that in there too is, I think, his personal growth too.
Yeah.
Because like when we started out, and you mentioned, do shit that scares you or whatever. It's funny to hear him recount the story of, starting that business. Well, let's get into a business where, you basically don't have a local market. Everything was against them. They went and did it anyway. And they just kind of figured it out. And he's got a track record of doing that, because the goal is what motivates him. He doesn't let anything stand in his way, and he's just so thoughtful about that. But the personal growth that comes with that, when you go see his videos, to hear that he's basically an introvert, and it's like, not when it comes to something he's passionate about,
right?
This with those stakes in play. No, he's awesome.
He's the perfect example of a small manufacturer who had all the odds stacked against him, right? Like he said, I'm on an island, for God's sake. I don't have a marketing team. I don't really have a big budget like my competitors. And so what did he do? He started making these videos. And it wasn't like, hey, it's me, Darren, and look at my company. It was all about helping the viewer, helping the potential or current customer And then the technology that he added to those trucks, to those trailers, are just absolutely incredible. And my very favorite story, and I want everyone listening to lean in and listen close, because this story is the proof that things have changed forever. Remember when he went to see the prospect, flew across the country, right? Or I think he flew to the US. He's sitting in this gentleman's office and he's waiting for this guy to say something. And finally he looks at him and he's like, "Guy, I just flew how many miles? I'm sitting here with you and you haven't said a word." And the guy goes, "I'm watching you on my phone right now. I'm watching your video." And Darren said, when the guy sitting in front of you trusts the little man, the man on the screen, more than the 6'2" guy sitting in front of you, things have changed forever.
Yeah, they have.
And of course, the guy became a customer. But man, when he told that story, I was just absolutely floored.
Yeah.
And it's true.
That's the example of where the whole selling cycle has changed. We're having that digital footprint because so much research was able to be done online and so much credibility established when the boss himself is doing these things, not once, twice, or whatever. His videos have been viewed how many millions of times?
Yeah.
And he's talking about special trailers, and stuff like that. So, to show up, that conversation was a lot different than, "Hi, I'm Darren. I'm here. Let me show you why my trailers are better than the other guys." That buyer already knew.
Well, the buyer already felt like he knew him, felt like he knew the company. And I think that's the big takeaway from that.
Yeah.
He had already he'd already moved the person halfway through the sales cycle, right? Yeah. They were already aware. They already felt like they trusted him. They had evaluated him, and the guy was pretty much ready to purchase.
Yeah.
Like you said, he didn't have to do a dog and pony show. It's creating that familiarity and consistency, and the familiarity, that's what breeds trust. I think that's what Darren is teaching manufacturers every day.
Yeah. And that authenticity comes through. If Darren didn't have that, that's part of his secret sauce, but God damn, he's stuck with it, And spoiler alert, there's some pretty awesome things on the horizon for Mr. Darren Mitchell. So
yes, stay
keep
tuned.
Following us, and by all means, keep following him, because that man is just getting warmed up.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for listening to MFG Out Loud with Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore. You can subscribe and find show notes at mfgoutloud.com.